Sometimes the biggest, most epic stories aren't found in books. They're pieced together bit by bit from these little messages left for us in stone. Today, we're basically becoming historical detectives, following a trail of ancient clues to uncover the story of a nearly forgotten king who built an incredible empire. Okay, let's dive right in. Our whole mystery kicks off not with a famous hero, but with a puzzle. See, scattered all across what is now Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, there are these ancient stone markers. They all seem to be telling some kind of story, but for centuries, nobody really knew what it was. And this is what we have to work with. Our entire investigation is built on just 21 of these stone inscriptions. And these aren't just rocks, right? They're the only direct messages we have from this king. They're the only clues he left behind for us to piece together his life and his legacy. So we've got 21 pieces of this giant puzzle. How on earth do you turn that into the full story of a king? Well, like any good detective work, you start by looking for a name. The first name that pops up in the earliest inscriptions is a prince named Chitrasena. So he's not a king just yet, but he's clearly a royal figure who's on the move, leaving these stone markers behind, almost like a diary of his travels. And then, bam, the next clue drops. The stones tell us exactly who his father was, King Viravarman. This puts him right in the royal family, a direct connection to the throne. But wait, there's more. They also say he's the younger brother of the guy who was king at the time, the powerful king Mahendravarman I. So this places him smack in the center of the Chenla kingdom, which was a major, major powerhouse in the region back then. And this is the real game changer. The inscriptions actually record the moment Prince Chitrasena becomes king himself. And when he does, he takes on a new royal name, Mahendravarman. This name change, literally carved in stone, is the official start of his reign. So how do we know when all this was happening? Well, it's pretty clever, actually. We can line up the info from the stones with old Chinese court records. Those records mention an envoy sent by his son, which helps us pin his reign to this really specific and important decade in the early 7th century. All right, so we've got our guy. We know his name, we know when he reigned, but what did he actually do? This is where the stones start to tell two very different, almost contradictory stories about him. This is where things get really, really interesting. Some of his inscriptions make him out to be this pious, religious son, but others, they paint a picture of a ruthless conqueror taking over new lands by force. So which is it? Well, the stones seem to be telling us he was both. I mean, listen to this. Several of the inscriptions say he's setting up these sacred objects with the permission of his mother and father. This sounds like a good, dutiful son, right? Fulfilling his religious duties, making his parents proud. But then you find these other inscriptions, and the tone is completely different. These ones, often found way up on strategic mountaintops, say he's establishing a sacred object as a symbol of his victory. This isn't about getting mom and dad's permission. No way. This is a bold, in-your-face statement of military conquest. And just look at where these victory markers are. The numbers are staggering. The vast majority of them, 16 out of 21, are found across modern-day Thailand. This shows us his campaigns weren't just some small skirmishes. This was a massive expansion that literally redrew the map of the entire region. So you think you've got him figured out, right? Regional conqueror, ambitious king, but then the research throws a massive curveball that connects his story to a much, much bigger world. Get this, he wasn't the only powerful King Mahendravarman around. At the exact same time, all the way across the Bay of Bengal in South India, there was another one ruling the huge Pallava Empire. And no, this isn't just a crazy coincidence. The Indian king was actually famous for carving these huge, grand inscriptions into mountains to show off his power. And researchers now believe this very specific practice, linking a mountain, a monument, and a declaration of victory, was an idea that actually traveled across the sea and directly inspired our king in Chenla. And just listen to the way the Indian king talked. It's almost the same script. This inscription says it's a temple built by a king before whom enemies bowed down. It's the exact same idea we see in Southeast Asia, using sacred buildings to broadcast our military might. Our guy wasn't just acting alone. He was plugged into this much bigger international culture of what it meant to be a king. All right, so let's take a step back and pull all these threads together. Let's see how these 21 scattered, broken pieces of stone, once you decode them, combine to paint this incredibly vivid picture of a man and his world. And this, right here, is basically how history gets written. You don't start with the answers, you start with these little fragments. You figure out who the players are, you analyze their motives, you put them in a global context, and then suddenly, a full, complex human being steps right out of the past. So in the end, what do these stones really tell us? Well, they're not just old rucks in a museum. They are living records of ambition, of power. They show us that one person could be both a devout son and a ruthless conqueror, and that the ancient world was this incredible web of connected ideas that stretched across entire empires. And that kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? The story of King Mahendravarman is a perfect reminder that history isn't just something that's finished and sitting in a book. It's a text that's literally carved into the world all around us, just waiting for someone to stop, look a little closer, and read the stories it has to tell.